Welcome back into the Rounding Third podcast. I'm Nick, and we got Sean back from his vacay, and we got Harrison tonight. How we doing, boys?
Evening,
What's up,
boys.
fellas?
Good. How was the vacay, Sean?
It was good. It was good, relaxing. A little week up in New Hampshire, so it was good. It was fun.
Nice. Should
Yeah.
have gone all the way to Maine, I'm telling you.
Gotta love the Granite State.
I've been to Maine. Nothing special with Maine.
Yeah, but no,
I'll take New Hampshire. I'll take New Hampshire any day. I'll take New Hampshire any day.
How far were you from Maine? About an hour?
About an hour. I mean, everything's about an hour from Maine. No, we were in. Honest, serious answer. We were in North Conway, so I don't know how far that is from Maine. I don't think it's very far at all.
It's like 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
is it really that close to Maine?
Well, in his defense, you're in Maine in like 15 minutes, but you're not in the part of Maine anybody's visiting. You're like an hour from all the stuff in Maine that's worthwhile.
Yeah. So,
okay, I got you.
Nice.
Well, of course, about an hour away.
About an hour. Yeah.
Figures.
Nice. All right. So before we get going, make sure you like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can interact with us anyway on Facebook. And we post stuff all the time. So comment, give us a hard time. Either way, we love it.
Nick loves it when you give him a hard time about being a Red Sox fan.
Oh, absolutely. It's the best. Love it. Eat it up and then laugh at you later. But, it's all good. It's all in good fun. Leading off tonight, we had the news that Vin Scully passed away. Is there a more iconic voice who's been, 67 years in baseball, let alone the other sports that he's been a part of? Just some of the moments that we know in baseball history has Vin Scully's voice behind it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I can even remotely come close to another iconic baseball announcer other than him, right? Like, he's it, right? He's the cream of the crop.
For now. And I think he always will be. I don't mean that I don't think anyone's going to surpass him, but for now, like I think another 30 years of like Joe Buck dominating Fox. Like, I think I know, but not the point. I don't think he'll be Vin Scully, but I'm just saying, like, I think you get to a point 30 years from now where it's like our kids can be like, wow, like every big moment had Joe Buck's voice. Right, because he's doing Super Bowls,
absolutely,
big time football games. Yeah. He does World Series, so it's like that. But for Vin Scully to do it when he did radio, he did TV, he did. The catch Joe Montana to Dwight Clark was Vin Scully calling the catch at the NFC Championship.
Crazy. Yeah, I had no idea until this week. I honestly didn't.
Insane sports moments. It's his voice tattooed in your brain, which is. Yeah. Insane. And for our parents' generation, it's crazy for us, and we came at the very, very end. Like, I can imagine, like, my dad, my uncles, like the memories that they have of watching all these like big time sports moments. It's just Vin Scully after Vin Scully. Incredible.
Well, think about it. Like, TV probably just started to like really be popular when he started. 67 years ago is the 60s. So TV is like really starting to take off, and like he's the first voice that comes on the box, and he's there for 70 years. Like, it's
it really is remarkable. And to think about, like, even at his age, like towards the end of his career, and he would be doing those like Sportsnet, like LA, when he was doing Dodger games by himself. Like, he didn't have a caller. It was just, and he was, since his passing. There are all these videos that came out, and I've watched probably each and every one like 10 times. But it's like his ability to transition from like calling the count to the windup to tell a story, and like the story would pause perfectly as the pitch was coming. So it's just like all seamless, and it's like just remarkable. And you found yourself when MLB TV came out, a handful of years ago, whatever, I would find myself going to bed to Dodger games. And like not going to bed because you're just listening to Vin. You're like, oh shit, it's like 1:30, it's like 8th inning. You're just listening to story after story. You don't even realize you're really watching a baseball game. It really was crazy. Like, that was not exaggeration on my part. Like, you just didn't realize you were watching baseball. He was so good at what he. So good.
You want to hear an interesting stat about Vin Scully? So, in his 67-year career, Vin Scully called 25 World Series, 12 All-Star games, 18 no-hitters and 3 perfect games.
18 no-hitters and 3 perfect games, dude. That's insane.
Pretty good run. Yeah, I guess the only sad part, I think, I'm in the same boat as you, Sean. Like, I love Vin Scully. I remember a lot of great things called by him. But where I was on the East Coast, I didn't get to hear Vin a lot.
Right.
And it's a shame that he was on the West Coast, doing all that Los Angeles Central stuff. And he did World Series teams and all that. So we saw him nationally, but not a lot. Like, when I think of the most prominent broadcaster in my lifetime, it was Jerry Remy. Like, he told every he was the guy that gave us every Red Sox moment. Like, I hear stuff in his voice. I definitely remember the stuff that Vin did, but didn't get the same level of exposure to him as others because he was on the West Coast. But an absolute friggin' legend.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, and it's been really kind of, I mean, not cool, but you know what I mean. But like seeing all the tributes and like all the people talk about him and like their personal stories about him, and it was just really cool. But I mean,
I was wondering when the Dodgers did that whole moment for him and Dave Roberts came out to speak. I was wondering if Dave Roberts was going to signal to have a starter come in, and then he was going to finish the speech after somebody got it going.
Nice. Nice.
I mean, it wouldn't have shocked me at that point.
I mean, it would have worked perfectly for him. But anyways,
goodness gracious. All right. Well, we're gonna move on to let's talk about the trade deadline. So Harrison and I were on last Monday night, and a lot of stuff went down. And then Tuesday happened, and holy Hannah, this was probably one of the best trade deadlines I remember in quite some time. Like, I mean, it seemed like almost every move was impactful, wild, like you said, Sean. Like, I mean, it was insane. So let's just start right off the top with the big dog, Juan Soto and Josh Bell going to the Padres for 4 prospects, Mackenzie Gore and Luke Voit, which initially was supposed to be Eric Hosmer. And he goes, no, thanks. I'd like to go to a team that can't catch a baseball and can't pitch. But, so he doesn't waive his no trade clause at first. So that put a hold on the Soto deal until the Padres were like, all right, well, whatever. We'll just throw Luke Voit in there. So Voit and Mackenzie Gore go to the Nationals and 4 prospects. I mean, we'll get to it later, I'm sure. But I don't know if Soto and Josh Bell puts them over the edge to get over the Dodgers, to be completely honest.
Well, the hard thing is that with or without Soto, they can't beat the Dodgers. They can't beat the Dodgers. I was watching the game last night, and I mean, I knew it was bad in a sense that like the Dodgers had their way, and then they put the graphic up on the screen about like it was like no joke, like the Dodgers like 18-2 in their last 20 against the Padres, or like some crazy number like that, and they outscored them like 70-something to like 20-something.
Yeah,
like I probably should have got my numbers before I came out, but it was insane. Yeah. It was insane. The Padres had 1 game against the Dodgers in that 20-game span, 1 game in which they scored more than 5 runs, and they lost 11-9.
That's amazing.
It's the Dodgers pitching has just been, I mean, it's been great all year, but it's been so good against San Diego.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned it in our group text the other day, was like the Padres have good pitching or had good pitching. Like Yu Darvish past his prime, Blake Snell past his prime, Mike
never the same guy since getting pulled out of that game.
Right. Clevenger hasn't been the same since he's come back from his injury. Like he wasn't he was dominant in Cleveland.
Yeah.
He's not the same guy in San Diego. So I think they're kind of underachieving. However, that being said, I think it's going to take a few weeks for these guys to click and start clicking and playing together. I mean, those are some big personalities to have in that lineup with Machado. Tatis is on his rehab finally. And they're looking to put him in the outfield so they can leave Cronenworth and whoever their shortstop is right now in the infield, and then put Tatis in the outfield.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So they're going to have him play both as like center and short. But yeah, so they'll sit Trent Grisham is probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, I heard I heard somebody this morning mention the fact that Juan Soto's done nothing since he got to San Diego, which guy's been there for 5 games, so let's take it easy. But guy's had 21 plate appearances. He's got 5 hits, 5 walks, scored 3 runs, no strikeouts, no home runs or RBIs, but he's hitting .313 with 5 walks and 3 runs scored in the 5 games he's been there. It isn't like he's done nothing for them.
His on-base percentage is 10 for 21. Like he's almost 500 getting on base.
His OBP is 476. I mean, the guy is an absolute on-base machine. And yeah, he may not have launched one 480 feet yet, but he will. But that's still a pretty impressive start.
I don't care what kind of slump Juan Soto gets in, whether he's in Washington, whether he's in San Diego, whether he's in New York, or wherever the hell he winds up for the rest of his career. This guy so far in his career is 23 or 24. I don't know when he turns 24, but I think 23 right now. In his career, he has more walks than strikeouts. In a league that's trending towards home runs and swinging from your touch hole every minute, right? This guy has more walks and strikeouts in his career. He will be fine. The home runs, as you said, are going to come. The bombs are going to come. The base clearing doubles in the 7th inning when they need it are going to come. I don't get talk about knee-jerk reactions and quick reactions. That's, it happens in sports. I get it. But Juan Soto is going to be fine. And that team is going to be better for having Juan Soto in the lineup. This quick reaction to be he hasn't done anything since he's been there. No. And, has he hit a ball 600 feet? No, not yet. But it's happened.
God.
And since he's been there, they've played some pretty good teams. I mean, they've gone up against good baseball teams.
Right.
Yeah. They got owned by the Dodgers, but
he needs to acclimate himself to the lineup, yes, he is a professional athlete that gets paid so much money and he's worth every penny and he's crazily underpaid, which is, he's always going to be underpaid, but he's still a human. It's still just going to take him a little while to get acclimated to the lineup, to get used to the players in the locker room. He's got his own personal routine, but it's a different club. It's a different team. It's different guys. It's a different feel. It takes you a little while to get used to it, and they're going to need him in October. If I was a Padres fan, I'd be like, dude, don't hit a home run for the entirety of August. I don't care. We're going to need you in September and October. That's when we're going to need the Juan Soto bat in the lineup. So take it now. Take your time. Figure it out. Get acclimated. He'll be fine. They'll be fine. I'm not worried about that.
It was quite impressive because, that was obviously must-see TV for me to watch his debut. Yep. And to see Petco Park packed to the gills. And
that was a World Series Game 7.
Wrapped around the stadium. There was so much excitement there. It was incredible.
Well, and to go back to the whole idea of settling in, everybody says, like Sean said, these guys are professional athletes, you get all this money, all this help, what does it matter? But back up a second. Have any of us changed jobs on Monday, started the new job on Tuesday across the country? Has anybody been through that experience? You're now working with new people. You're in a hotel room. You don't know anybody. You don't know where you are. You're getting used to a new ballpark, new staff, new everything. These guys don't just wake up in the morning and go hit .313. Juan Soto does, but the guy just changed jobs across the country and he's been at it for 6 days. I think he's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And for the record, I don't feel bad for him because he does get paid millions of dollars.
Sure.
So it's that's part of it. But you can't just expect magic. You have to understand, you can look at it and be disappointed, and I guess that's fine, whatever. But you can't just expect a guy, like you said, just go cross country on the next day and then be how do you not go 3 for 4 with 2 bombs and 6 RBIs?
Yeah, what the hell, man?
It's it doesn't work.
Slacker.
That's not how it works, right?
But that's where.
So again, for the record, I don't feel bad for him, but it's you got to understand a little bit that he's a human.
Yeah.
Right. But the casual, that's where the casual baseball fan is chirping in and being oh, he's not doing anything. He's been on base in half of his plate appearances.
Yeah.
How can you?
Because it's and I love the game. It's my favorite game in the world, baseball. But there's nothing more infuriating than the stat humpers. All they do is look at stats. Did you watch the game? Did you watch the 9-pitch at bat that he drew with 2 outs and earned a walk? Did you watch that? Because it's pretty fucking good at plate appearance.
Right.
So don't tell me he didn't do anything.
Right.
They watched SportsCenter, heard they lost, and went, the Padres suck. Well, Soto's overrated.
And they see the
he went 1 for 2 with 2 walks.
1 for 3, right? 1 for 3 single, no RBIs, no home runs. Oh, that's why'd they trade for him? It's
But crazy. I think the reality. I know that the Padres fans are feeling a little hurt that the Dodgers owned them like they did, but the reality of it is the Dodgers are wicked friggin' good, and the Padres have a month and a half here to get all these guys assembled, get everything lined up to make that run into the playoffs. That's a lineup to worry about. The pitching staff, to Nick's point, is good, but that lineup is scary.
Yeah, I think what San Diego needs, they're certainly not catching LA in the division. So the division is LA's. So you're not catching LA in the division. I think if you're San Diego, you really have to take a look at the top wild card spot. I think the top wild card spot has to be kind of what you're gunning for, because you need to put off playing LA as long as possible. You need to put off maybe around, hopefully someone can knock the Dodgers off, because they own you. They've owned you for years. Yep. It's not just a this year thing. Like, the Dodgers have owned you. The pitching owns you. Their lineup is just so comfortable against your pitchers. So that's got to be your number one thing. To me, if you're San Diego, it was like, listen, they're going to beat us in the regular season. I don't know how many more times they play the rest of the year, but I'm putting money on LA winning those games. So just, you got to get that top wild card spot and hope someone can knock them off and, make your road a little bit easier. But I mean, I think I think the trade, and we're going to get there later in the show, but I think the trade certainly makes them much more dangerous and a much better team.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
We'll talk about the Astros now trading for Trey Mancini, Christian Vasquez, and Will Smith from the Braves, which I thought was an interesting trade out of the bullpen.
Yeah, me too.
What about Vasquez going to the Astros? I think we talked about it a little bit last week, Harrison, or did we not? I can't remember.
Yeah, because it had literally just happened.
Yeah. So I got to go grab a juice. I will be right back, but you guys go at it.
I think the Vasquez trade makes a lot of sense for the Astros. They've struggled to get any hitting out of the catcher position. And from what I read, they don't plan on using Vasquez as the everyday guy. He's going to platoon because Maldonado is so good defensively. But they're like polar opposite players.
And I don't know what the stats are. So, I mean, is Maldonado, is he that much better defensively?
He's considered one of the top 2 or 3 defensive catchers in baseball. Stat-wise, he pops up in the top 2 or 3.
Okay.
So the pitching staff likes him as a receiver. Yeah, the pitching staff likes him as a receiver, and they like him the way he controls the running game.
And that's fair. I think Vasquez does a fine job at the running game. I really I don't know what the numbers say. I've watched the guy his whole career. I wouldn't put him in top 1, 2, but I think he does a fine job. And as we know, the pitchers are 50% of the running game as well. I mean, if you don't give the catcher a chance, I don't care who's back there. And the Red Sox pitching for years has just been not good at controlling the running game.
Well, it was like the days of John Lester. It didn't matter who you had behind the plate. Teams are going to run on him because he never threw to first and he was slow to the plate. There are just guys like that. You can't control it.
Right.
But no, I agree. I think, Vasquez is a very serviceable defensive catcher. Is he great? No, he's good. I don't think teams run on him because of him.
Yeah, right.
Is he as good defensively as Maldonado? No, but he's a better hitter.
But I do think much better hitter. But I also think it's important too. We're this far into the season. We're in August. If the pitching staff of Houston prefers Maldonado, you got to go with Maldonado. That's how, and that is worth it. And Vasquez, and I'll tell you, I've been a huge Vasquez fan. I was even saying it in July when we were doing the All-Star game stuff. You look more at his numbers, he deserved to be in the All-Star game for the American League because he was up there. He does, aside from Alejandro Kirk. I mean, what better catcher in the American League was there? Trevino, I just don't. You'll never convince me of that. I will.
No, I totally agree.
I will say, Vasquez, it's going to be interesting if they use him as a platoon catcher, but also kind of like hey, we need a big hit here. We're going to pinch hit late innings. I'm not so sure he's a pinch hit guy. Vasquez is the guy that has to be at least from my take on him, from watching him his whole career, he needs to be in the rhythm of at bats. And I think that's ultimately, why we saw this year he had such success hitting in the second, the third hole, in the order. Terrible lineups, but he's up there out of necessity. But he actually did fairly well because I think he gets in there, he gets in the rhythm of at bats. He maybe gets his second time up. He feels the pitcher out. You're not going to have that if you're pitch hitting in the 8th. I don't know. I mean, pitch hitting is tough. I mean, the guys that are the guys that are career pinch hitters, man, those guys are tapped. Like, I don't know how you do that. Like, how you sit on the bench, you take a few hacks in the cage, and then you go out there and you face 98 out of the pen and crush one over the fence. Like, that's nuts. Like, I don't know how those guys do that. So
Yeah, I've never understood that.
I mean, we'll see how he does. I'm rooting for him. It makes Houston, in my view, it makes Houston a little bit more likable. And Trey Mancini too. The both the guys that Houston got certainly makes them more likable. So I'm interested to see how they use Vasquez and how he does there.
Yeah, so since Vasquez has been there, he's appeared in 4 games. He's got 9 plate appearances. He's basically played in 50% of the games and innings that they've played since he's been there. So it's been a straight up platoon. It looks like it looks like he did come into a game late and got 1 at bat in it. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, that bomb that Mancini hit too was touch. That first game.
And I still feel like that's the most confusing trade. I guess two things. I think that's one of the most confusing trades I see, because it makes sense for Houston, obviously, but Baltimore's 2 games out of the wild card after making that run. Why the hell are you letting Mancini, who's arguably your kind of informal captain and the heart and soul of that team, go when you're actually in a wild card race? Like, I don't understand that trade. Are they waving the white flag and saying we're out? Are they saying we don't want to compete yet? Like, what message does that send to that young team of, hey, nice run, guys, but now we're going to back the whole winning thing. This sucks. We want to keep losing. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah. They also traded Jorge Lopez to the Twins.
I mean, makes no sense.
Talk about a team that quietly won the deadline, I think, or was towards the top, was the Twins. The Twins made a couple of moves. The Twins made a couple moves, nice moves. They got Jorge Lopez. They got Tyler Mahle from the Reds, and then Michael Fulmer from the Tigers. Yeah. So, I mean, they added some pitching depth. I mean, they're still the Twins. They got to get through the powerhouses. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't think it puts them over the edge, but they put themselves in a position to compete for sure.
Yeah. And back to that trade you mentioned about Will Smith. I mean, they treated Odorizzi, who's like an extra starter for them, for Will Smith. Like, that was a steal. That was kind of like an under the radar steal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What's that? Oh, Syndergaard to the Phillies. Does that do anything? I mean,
I think it'll be interesting. I mean, it'll be interesting. I don't know. I mean, the Phillies are kind of sneaky. After the Braves kind of tough stretch the Braves had here in New York, or there in New York, I should say, but the Phillies are like 3 games behind the Braves now. I mean, the Braves have to be feeling a little bit of pressure from the Phillies. Schwarber's just doing what Schwarber does, 30-plus bombs, just really showing up in the power department. But I don't know. I mean, he's not the Syndergaard of 2016 that they just kind of rode the raw power that he had through the playoffs. But, I still think he's serviceable. It'll be interesting, if he ends up facing his old team.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, he's a pitcher now. He's not a thrower. He's actually throwing off. He's using his off-speed stuff. He's locating. He's looked pretty good.
Yeah.
But he's also that guy when he doesn't have his command, he is going to get hit hard, and that was not his MO when he was younger, because he would just throw it past you.
Right. Well, and the hard thing with him is he's always struggled with command. I mean, he was always the guy that had like 110 in the 6th inning. Pitches 100 he always threw a lot of. He has a lot of 3-ball counts. It's a lot of. So when he doesn't have the command, he's going to get hit hard, and like he's going to have a lot of guys on base because he doesn't have that ability to just rear back and burn it by you. But I think he'll learn. I mean, he's still fairly young. I mean, he's not like he's not old. If he can figure out that ability to like, hey, like I'm a pitcher now, and I'm going to work my way through it. I think he, wherever he signs, if it's in Philly or wherever he ends up going, I think he could give them some good years. But he just won't be the Syndergaard that we.
Right. He's only about to turn 30. I mean, he's still got some years left in that arm.
I mean, he just had the surgery too. I mean, it's a reconstructed elbow.
We talk about the biggest pickup at the trade deadline, Brett Phillips, after he'd been DFA'd. The Orioles pick up Brett Phillips. Yeah. Huge. This trade to me, I know he wasn't exactly hitting, but I'm kind of, I don't know. Harrison Bader for the Jordan Montgomery. Bader goes to the Yankees, Montgomery goes to the Cardinals. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I know Bader wasn't hitting like he was, but he's a Gold Glove caliber center fielder.
I look at Bader indirectly as a swap for Gallo. So they dumped Gallo to the Dodgers. They picked up Bader, another strong defensive player who at least hits more consistently than Gallo. He's like a Gallo upgrade.
And they're both Gold Gloves.
Kind of spun him. Exactly. So you basically you dumped Gallo, who's a Gold Glove outfielder who can't hit, for Bader, who's a Gold Glove outfielder who can hit sometimes, and that's still in some ways a plus. And I think Bader gives you more flexibility. He can run. He can do some stuff for you, where Gallo couldn't do anything for you. I mean, that guy couldn't have hit water if he fell out of a boat, and he couldn't even get on base. Like he literally went up there. He shouldn't have even brought a bat with him.
It's just funny that the Yankees have lost a ton after Gallo got traded, and now that on the Dodgers are on a run. Like, maybe it is Joey Gallo.
Maybe
Bader has great hair though too. So
you're right. He does. He truly does.
Great flow. Mm-hmm.
Whit Merrifield from the Royals to the Blue Jays. Does it help the Blue Jays?
Oh, only if he can play.
I was going to say, he can't. Right. I don't think he can go into Canada.
He can't even play the home games right now.
Oh, so he's not vaccinated. So he's not even.
No,
he's not. And they were. That's one of the. I was waiting to see if there's going to be an update on whether he's going to get vaccinated. Actually, yeah. A report just came out. He is now vaccinated for COVID. He had to skip the first couple games with the Blue Jays to go get an approved vaccination so he could join the team.
So saline approved vaccine. Yeah.
He got one of those microchip Bill Gates injections.
What was some other ones that there was a lot of little ones too. The Phillies picked up David Robertson again. Feels like he's been in a Philadelphia uniform 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. We got Josh Hader, who we talked about because that trade had happened before that. That's an interesting one.
And Dinelson Lamet was like immediately dropped by the Brewers. They were like, thanks for him, but no thanks.
Yeah, the Red Sox made a bunch of nothing trades.
The
Red Sox basically got Eric Hosmer and a couple of guys for a bag of balls. The Mets made that trade for Darren Ruff from San Francisco. They gave up a decent package to get Ruff.
It's J.D. Davis. It was essentially a J.D. Davis for Darren Ruff, who I thought was an interesting one. I think the idea is J.D. Davis just strikes out way too much for a guy that you need a platoon and come up and maybe, come off the bench late in games. Like you don't put the bat on the ball enough. The interesting thing about Darren Ruff is I don't think he's that much better at putting the ball in play than J.D. Davis, except he hammers lefties. J.D. Davis, for a guy that's a right-handed guy that's supposed to have some power, I don't think handled lefties nearly as well as he should have. And Darren Ruff just absolutely mashes lefties. And I think they kind of looked at it and they were just like, listen, if it's 1 for 1, we get a guy who probably is going to give us the same, except a little bit better against left-handers, we'll go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow. Nice play.
And then Raisel Iglesias.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. And then Raisel Iglesias went to the Braves from the Angels. So
interesting move. Probably a good move for Atlanta. Atlanta made a couple of quiet trades that I don't think are going to hurt them. They think they'll help them. But at the same time, that team was cranking before the deadline. So
yeah, but that fills that Will Smith trading to the Astros kind of plug. So that's fine.
Yeah, I feel like the Yankees made some moves to kind of trade some players around. The Braves did the same thing. The Dodgers did the same thing. I think it was more like maybe trading a weakness for maybe an improvement at that spot. But some of these teams, if you're the Dodgers, the Braves, the Mets, you're not looking to make a big blockbuster trade to that lineup, like that roster. You're in good shape. Like just keep doing what you're doing. Maybe tighten up a couple of holes there and keep going because whatever you're doing is working.
Yeah. I would have loved to see the Mets maybe strengthen up the bullpen a little bit. Diaz is obviously, Edwin is disgusting.
Yeah, he's a freak.
But kind of kind of getting to him has been a bit of a
Yeah.
roller coaster at times. Like that, they don't really have that kind of, one guy for the 8th to get to the 9th. So I would have liked to see them, but you know what though? Like if it's not there, I would rather you not do anything and not really
Yeah.
mess with the chemistry that this team has and overpay for something that like just to make a splash. And, one thing that Mets Twitter was going absolutely bananas. Like Billy Epler this, Billy Epler that, like losing their minds about the Mets and they're not going to get out of the first round. They're like losing their minds. And it's like Billy Epler did what he did in the offseason so that he didn't have to make a splash in August.
100%.
Right.
That's why you went and did what you did in the offseason. Like that's why you went with Starling Marte, and that's why you went and paid for Scherzer, and that's why you went and made those moves so that when it came to August, you didn't have to get bent over a barrel to get that one guy that can get you over the edge.
No.
Like I don't understand the logic.
And let's not forget, Jacob deGrom was coming back like at the exact same time,
yeah.
which is better than any friggin' trade you're going to make.
Sure.
That's a
Can you
nice
imagine,
August
you know?
upgrade.
Just making all those
And I'll tell you-
off-season moves that just get to the deadline, just be like, yeah, we're good with you guys. Thanks. Like,
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Wild.
That's just, but I agree. And I think Naquin I think was a good move, and I think Vogelback,
Yeah.
we'll get, he's my pick for later in the show, but I think he's been great. He's hitting like 320 since he's been there, come up with some big hits, just an absolute runaway train on the base pass. It's awesome,
And he wears pitchers
and
out.
But he fits right in. He fits right in with that team. He fits right in New York. They love him. They love him in New York.
Yeah.
As they should.
Mhm.
So, I think it was a good deadline. I enjoyed. It was a fun, wild, but I enjoyed that deadline.
So I do have a question for us right now, since I'll bring it up when we're talking trade deadline. What is going to be a bigger impact, or what was a bigger impact? Manny Ramirez coming to the Sox at the deadline, or Juan Soto going to San Diego? What's going to be a bigger impact?
Well, I mean, I think Manny,
It's so hard
just 'cause
because Soto's like an unknown, right?
it's not like I don't think San Diego's gonna be able to keep him for any longer. Like I don't think he's gonna be in San Diego long term because like all the money that they have tied up in Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado. I mean, Soto's going to he is going to demand so much money. And I get that it's a limited market. Like it's not, 30 teams aren't in it. I get that. But like the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Mets. And don't kid yourself. Like Steve Cohen has proven that he will pay an exorbitant amount of money for someone that he wants on his team. There's just no doubt. He has done it more than once. He doesn't care. So, like, you have to put them in that conversation for Juan Soto. So, I mean, I think right now it's got to be Manny, considering what Manny brought to Boston for how long he brought it. I say that's the answer. But if San Diego can find a way to keep him there long term and pay him, then we got ourselves a conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's hard, too, because when Manny Ramirez came to Boston, like that team was beginning the climb, the ascent up. They weren't there yet.
Well, I would say San Diego's in that same boat right now.
Well, I think San Diego's in that boat right now, but they're like the Red Sox were not making the playoffs, or we're not expected to make the playoffs in 2000. I think that I think when you look at the Padres, I think this trade puts them in the contention to get to like the NLCS. Or I think before that it was just like they may squeak in the playoffs, they'll be okay. And the Red Sox were not as far along as the Padres are. They weren't a lot farther behind, but the Padres are going to make the playoffs without Juan Soto. It's just a matter of does he push them over the hump to go a little deeper than they might have gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a gauntlet in the NL to get through. You got to get through either the Mets or the Dodgers, potentially both, depending on what round you get them in. That's going to be a hell of a gauntlet for a team to get through. And in the American League, you're going to get the Yankees and the Astros. I mean, you're going to have two teams that are absolute juggernauts you got to get through.
Yeah, I mean, I think the AL, it's those two teams superior, and then the rest are after a big drop. I think the National League, I mean, you're looking at the Dodgers, the Mets, the Cardinals, the Brewers. The Brewers, I think, to me, have proven quite a bit in the last month and a half. Like, they're not running away. They don't have 70-something wins. But it's like, it's a team that we've been saying for a while that St. Louis is going to catch them. And then they just keep playing well. And they just keep winning games. I think Hader was a weird one, like to trade away just because you were a team that was playing so well. But I think they're a good, talented team. And then you got the Braves, and the Braves struggled against the Mets. And a weird thing that I saw, the Braves are under 500 against teams over 500.
They are.
They're 21-23 against teams over 500. So they're going to have to correct that. They're going to have to maybe figure some things out. But it's a team with veteran presence that won a World Series. Like, they're not going away either. I think the National League is just a lot better. Like a lot better than
what's interesting is the Braves are 21-26 against teams above 500. The Cardinals, who now have taken over Milwaukee and have a 2-game lead in the Central just after this weekend, are 22-27 against teams with records better than 500. And San Diego is 20-27 against teams with a record better than 500. So you've got the Mets and the Dodgers, who are clearly superior, and everybody else is kind of feasting on the lower level teams and kind of bumping along against the better teams. And it's going to be a matter of who can. And the Padres are all in the same boat. They're not elite teams. They're very good. They don't have great records against teams over 500. They don't have great records against the Dodgers and the Mets, who they're going to have to get through. But they'll be in a 5 or a 7-game series. They can't get hot at the right time and put a few wins up. But it is definitely going to be a hell of a task to take one or both of those teams down.
Yeah, and I would say out of the 3 teams, I know we're probably getting carried away here, but like I would say of those 3 teams, the Padres would scare me the most, just because it's like it's the ultimate team that you just don't want to get hot. Like the Braves have the kind of I think the Braves have the best manager out of the 3. I think they have kind of the resolve. They won the World Series. They got real veteran players over there. St. Louis is just like it's just a good team, but like they have holes, they have flaws. San Diego, you just pray to God that when you get them in the postseason, they aren't on that hot, and then you can keep the bats. Yeah. And when those bats roll, I don't care who. The Mets staff, maybe just because of how good they are and how good they've been all year, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, that lineup, if they are clicking, could pile runs up on you in the blink of an eye.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Sure.
Well, so let's move on here. And let's just get right into it. The Red Sox win the series over the Houston Astros, and then they get pummeled, like absolutely pummeled by the Kansas City Royals. How bad? The Royals set a record against the Red Sox for the most amount of runs scored in the series. I mean, this is now the 3rd or 4th team that has set a record for runs in a series this year. Yep. I mean, the Blue Jays put up 50-something runs on them in that 3-game series, 4-game series, than the Royals. That's not even what I'm more upset with is like Sean has mentioned, and through this whole thing, the home runs have dried up for the New York Yankees. Aaron Judge has cooled off a little bit. He's finally not the player of the week for the 6th time in a row.
They were 9-16 last month. The Yankees are coming back to earth.
Right. So this was, if I thought the Blue Jays series was a turnaround, if you came out of the deadline, you just beat the Astros, you got some momentum, you go to Kansas City and lose 3 out of 4. I mean, you had a chance
and
to turn it around and gain some ground, and you laid the biggest egg ever.
The problem is that's what happens though when you don't. It's not a major league roster right now.
It's not.
No, still not.
Jarren Duran. I
was gonna get to him.
If I never hear the potential of Jarren Duran again, I can die a happy man. That dude, and I don't care how fast he is. I don't care how fast he is. He's super fast, and it's great. You go play for the Raiders. He's fast. I don't care. He doesn't put effort in. He's a terrible center fielder, and he can't hit. I mean, we thought Jackie Bradley was a detriment to this team. Jackie Bradley at least provided some type of positivity in the field.
And wasn't scared of the ball.
And he just seems like an all-around great dude, like to be around. Jarren Duran seems stuck up. Doesn't seem like a good dude. I have no idea. I never met the guy, but just kind of gives off that vibe. Puts no effort in on the field. Not a good fielder.
None.
and he doesn't hit any better than Jackie Bradley. So what's the?
And unless that guy hits 350, I'm never going to get over him just standing there in center field watching that ball go to the wall and waiting for Verdugo to haul ass from left field to bail him out.
Dude,
At that point in time, I wanted him back in Worcester, and I've wanted him back in Worcester ever since.
Buddy,
and I made a joke about Jackie Bradley Jr. getting released. I would have rather have kept JBJ on the roster because at least he try hard and send Duran down. Like, send him back to Worcester. The guy's hitting 220 something. He doesn't give a crap. He might be fast, but he can't get on base. Who cares? Like, great, he's awesome. He's wicked fast sitting in the dugout. Like, what the hell does that do for you?
And I wouldn't be surprised if they needed to do something earlier in the year. There was a team that was just stuck. They needed a spark. Duran's the guy that we've been hearing about for years. I get that. But it wouldn't shock me at all either if Chaim Bloom and those guys are sitting around going, you know what? We'll bring him up. We'll let him showcase what he has, and we'll just add to his value. We'll add to his trade value in the offseason. Teams get to see him against major league talent. Teams get to see him up in the big leagues every day. You know, we can showcase how fast he is. We maybe showcase a little bit of the power, and then we maybe can sell high. And it has backfired because I don't think if I'm another team in Major League Baseball, why would I trade for this guy unless I can get pennies on the dollar?
Right.
I mean, it has been a disgusting showing. And I think if you're Chaim at this point, like, you got to keep him up because, like, by sending him down, I mean, you're not helping his value by sending him to the minors. Like, you just hope that maybe he can course correct and maybe have a good August and a pretty decent September. And then, you know, maybe we're riding it high again. But, oh my God,
that Blue Jays adventure aside, his defensive series in Kansas City was in my prime, in my baseball prime, which isn't saying much, by the way. I could have played and probably hit better than Jarren Duran right now. I could have played. I'm not fast at all. I could have played a better center field and at least hit my weight.
He seems slow to react. He takes bad routes to the ball, and there was a ball in the gap to left center that he was at full tilt on, and then about halfway there he quit. He started jogging, and if he had actually run, he probably would have caught it. But he slowed up, let it take its hop off the wall, then he grabbed it. But he didn't slow up in the last 2 steps. He slowed up in the last 10, just getting ready to play the bounce rather than going for the ball. And I remember the days of Jim Edmonds. That guy was 100 miles an hour until he either crashed until he caught it or crashed into the wall. There was no stopping. And JBJ is the same way. JBJ would have gone face first into the friggin' wall, made the catch, and we would have joked about the fact that he can't hit, but he would have made the catch. Instead, Duran loafed, let it bounce. But I was all for showcasing the kid. Bring him up. The team sucks. Bring this kid up, see what he can do. He's got 48 Ks and 163 at bats. He projects to be a 200 strikeout a year guy, hitting 227, playing mediocre defense, looking way overmatched. We wanted to run Jeter Downs out of town because the guy looked overmatched. Duran's in the same boat. He just hit it better because it took him longer to hit the wall.
Yeah, I mean, I think every walk of life, right? Every first school you go to, every first job you start, right? You get one shot at a first impression. I mean, it's drilled into you when you're a kid. You get one shot at a first impression. That was Jarren Duran's first impression. Major League Baseball is not going to forget it. Now, you'll always have people talk about the potential. You'll always talk about the speed and the power when he gets there, whatever. But people are going to remember him just standing there, watching that ball over his head, not hustling, slowing up in right center for that ball that he lets bounce off the wall. And the Red Sox,
I'll never forget
for
that.
Years, no one will. And for for us growing up, I mean, the Red Sox have always had, you go back to the, JD was probably not a great example because he made everything look easy, but that guy hustled his balls off in the outfield, right? You had guys like Coco Crisp going
defender.
crazy, Johnny Damon, Coco Crispin center throwing his body around, Jackie Bradley Jr.
Everett.
It's just a list of outfielders, right? That would just play with their ball bags on fire. That's what the Boston Red Sox have always produced. Whether they brought the guys in or whether they brought them up from the minors and brought them through the system, that's who these outfielders were. And to put Jackie Bradley, to put Jarren Duran out there is almost like a slap in the face to all the guys before. Yeah. Just to watch him play outfield like that is just it's cringeworthy. I have a hard time watching it.
I mean, he literally looks petrified every time the ball's hit to him.
He just has disinterested. It just
Zero-
looks
right.
disinterested. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
It's bad. I don't know where to even go from that, but yeah. Padres Dodgers series. I mean, Dodgers took 3 out of 4 there.
it looked really good too. I mean, the Dodgers are good. The 70-something wins. I mean, they're
Yeah,
good.
we kind of talked about it a little
They're
bit.
good.
haven't we?
They're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. But what else? And then the Mets Braves, we touched on it a little bit. Braves kind of
That was a big boy series for the New York Mets, though. And I know it's home, and it helps when you're at home. Obviously, when you have, it helps. When you got the trumpets coming out in the ninth. I mean, that is one of the most intimidating things since Enter Sandman, right? I mean, it's an absolute home field advantage. Excuse me. But what a showing!
Yeah.
That team's good,
crazy.
man. That team is,
Mhm.
and I'm a homer. I'm a big Mets fan. I've been saying it, but that team is so good, and they complement each other. They complement. I mean, the top of the order gets on, the middle of the order drives them in, the bottom of the lineup keeps it going. Starting pitching's been awesome. Bullpen's been a little shaky, but as long as you get to Edwin, I mean, this guy strikes out more than 50% of the batters he faces this year. That is outrageous. He is so good, and I feel so vindicated because when they pulled that trade off and they got him from Seattle a couple of years ago, he struggled. His first year in New York, he absolutely struggled. He got chased out of the ninth inning. He was a seventh inning guy. But they knew. And I remember sitting there going, this guy had 50-something saves in Seattle. He's not a joke. He's good. He's just give him the confidence that he's got the stuff. And boy, it feels so good to feel vindicated like this because he's an absolute – I mean, when Papelbon was on his run in Boston, he wasn't anywhere near what Diaz is. And that was fun to watch. And that was fun to watch. Diaz is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
I can't even imagine what that looks like in the batter's box, to be completely honest. I can't even.
I mean, you have. I mean, we used Matt Olson as an example against Jacob deGrom, and you have professional, really good professional, all-star major league hitters who are swinging at pitches 9 inches out of the zone or just freezing on cock shots down the middle because they have no idea what's coming. It is a masterclass in just setting guys up and then executing on those pitches. Every at bat. Yeah. It really is remarkable.
So that's kind of go ahead.
Eddie, just real quick. Eddie Rosario had a single off of him the other night. 101 above the letters, and Rosario gets on top of it. And it's one of those things where you just tip your cap. You're like, hey, these guys are actually really good. So to show that they can do that and then to still strike out 57% of the guys you face, disgusting. Absolutely mind-boggling. So
it's kind of a good segue because Jacob deGrom goes out and just absolutely dominates in his outing back. Is Jacob deGrom the most dominant pitcher ever? Granted, so I'm mixed here because if he could stay on the field, I would say yes, no doubt about it. At least the most dominant I've seen. And I mean, that's saying something with seeing 99 Pedro. But his swing and miss stuff, his 102 with a 93 mile an hour slider. You don't see a 93 mile an hour slider. Sorry. You have zero chance. Well, that's what I mean. Well, it has to have crazy bite when you're throwing it that hard. But
I mean, but it's not like a cutter. It's not a nine. It's a slide. I mean it's 12 inches, 13 inches.
Yeah, it's not moving 3 inches like a cutter. It's going off the plate completely.
It's a darter slider. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It's like the fireworks where it just goes in and just keeps going, just completely 180s. Yeah, I mean, so is he the most dominant pitcher ever? I'll just leave it at that. What's your thought?
Tough to say ever.
Okay. Why?
I don't know. I mean,
he may.
Go ahead, Harrison.
I'll say he may have some of the most dominant stuff we've ever seen. But I'm with Sean. I don't know that you can say he's the most dominant ever. The hard part, we've just never seen a long enough stretch from him to understand what he really could be.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I'll amend that. I think we know what he could be because he's been doing this every spurt that he's been on the field. It's not like he's had bad spurts and then he got hurt and then he comes back and he's good again. Every time he's on the field, he's nasty. But he just can't stay healthy. Like, I think we know what he could be. Like, I don't think there's any question on if he pitched a full season, if he, could throw 200 innings, which I don't think we will ever see from him, just because they're just going to baby him forever, which they should. I mean, if he threw 200 innings, he would have the most disgusting numbers, I think, in a season for starting pitching. With the way strikeouts are up. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you look at his 18 and 19 seasons, and those are really the best indications of a full season from him. Granted, the teams weren't good. He was only 10 and 9 and 11 and 8, but he had a 1.70 ERA, a 2.43 ERA. He pitched 200 plus innings in those seasons, struck out 260 guys on average those 2 years. I mean,
and his whips are at like 1.0 or like 0.9. Like, guys didn't get on base.
No, exactly. His whip, he was at 0.912 and 0.971. I mean, sub 1 whips those 2 years.
It's crazy for 200 innings.
Right, it's nuts. I mean, his statistics are gross. But he's only pitched 200 innings 3 times in his whole career.
And he'll never do it again. It will only be 3 times.
I don't see how
he'll never do it again.
What I find interesting though with DeGrom is that he didn't make his major league debut till he was 26 years old. I mean, he is 34 years old.
Yeah.
So this is my point. I was talking with Nick from the SOS podcast. I was commenting on his because he was talking about Jacob deGrom's outing, and I made the point where, like, his stuff is so dominant, and he has so much talent in his body that his body legit can't handle it. Like, he's got so much skill in his body that his body just can't handle. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, he can almost outperform what his body's capable of holding together. Like, he just can't.
But look at his frame. The guy is 6'4", 180 pounds. Like, a guy at 6'4" should be like 220. I mean, he should be built a lot differently than he is. Just like Chris Sale. Chris Sale is in the same boat as Jacob deGrom. Physically, he's granted he's had some goofy stuff happen too, but like, he's not going to hold up anymore. And what always surprised me is how old DeGrom is. I feel like DeGrom's like 30. The guy's 34. He's been around for a while. He came up late. Yeah. Like, a 34-year-old body doesn't recover like a 28-year-old body does, like a 30-year-old body does. And this, I mean, and to Sean's point, he may only pitch 100 innings a season for the next few seasons. And maybe that's all you can get out of him. Because I do think a guy throwing 102 in that frame at 35, 36, 37 years old, I mean, pieces of his body are going to start to like fall off in the delivery. Like, there's physically, how do you support 102 miles an hour consistently with that skinny frame at 35, 36 years old?
Yeah. I mean, I think the frustrating part too is, like, if these shoulder, elbow problems consistently happen for somebody like a Chris Sale or whatever, you kind of like, yeah, it's a shame, it sucks, but like, look at the way he throws. DeGrom has such that great mechanical, almost flawless motion. Like, you look at it and you go, he shouldn't be hurt. Like, he shouldn't. Like, he doesn't put too much stress on his elbow. He doesn't put too much stress on his shoulder. Like, everything is it's mechanically almost a perfect motion. And it makes it like frustrating that he can't stay healthy, because it's like, you're almost doing the right things. Like, you're rehabbing, you're coming up with the right motion to really put the stress equally in the amount. I mean, the human arm is not meant to go overhand. That's why pitchers don't throw every day.
Right.
Because like, that's not the way it's meant to do. So eventually you only have so many bullets in your gun. Totally get that. And that's fine. But it's frustrating to watch some of these guys come up and just flail away and like be able to play for like 15 years. And then DeGrom has like this perfect motion. He can't stay healthy. Like, it's so frustrating at times because he's almost doing all the right things. I can't imagine how he feels.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and my only hope for Jacob deGrom is Randy Johnson. The peak of Randy Johnson's career arguably was 99 through 2002, where he won 4 Cy Youngs. He was 35, 36, 37, 38. The difference is with Randy Johnson at that point in his career than the younger Randy Johnson is that he stopped trying to throw at 100 miles an hour. He became a pitcher. He started locating, changing speeds. Like, he matured as a pitcher as he led up to that point, and his best years were technically at the back end of his career because he'd come full circle as a pitcher. My hope is for a guy like DeGrom. Maybe he dials the 102 back to 97, 96. He'd still be dominant at that. But maybe if he reined it back in a little bit, work some more off-speed stuff, maybe there's a way to salvage that arm a little bit. But that's my only hope for DeGrom, is that his career follows Randy Johnson's and that he really peaks in his late 30s and we actually get to see a few years of what Jacob DeGrom could be for an extended length of time, because the guy's stuff is unfriggin' real. It's unmatched from anybody we've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy too. It's funny you say like dial back from the 102. He doesn't even look like he's trying. Like, how does he dial back? Like, how do you dial back? Like when Randy Johnson threw 100, you could he was trying to throw 100.
Absolutely.
But Jake's is just such an easy, smooth, mechanically. Yes, it's like, how does he even dial it back? Like, that's just what he does. Like 102 is just what he throws. Yeah. It's crazy.
Maybe there's something mechanically they can do to protect his arm, or I have no idea. But I mean, the guy was the rookie of the year as a 26-year-old rookie. Won a couple Cy Youngs in 18 and 19, and really his only 2 full seasons that were like true full seasons. I mean, the guy has got incredible stuff, and I don't know how you protect that arm if there's a different program he needs to be on, if there's a mechanical change they can make. But 99 Pedro stuff was not Jacob DeGrom stuff of 2021 and 2022. Like, the guy is an absolute freak. I mean, he was 7-2 last season in limited action. He threw 92 innings, struck on 146 guys in 92 innings with a 1.08 ERA. I mean, he finished in the top 10 Cy Young voting, and he only pitched half the season. Yeah. Like, it's ridiculous what the guy can do when he's on the field.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, you got players of the week for last week, Harrison?
I do, sir. So we've got Nolan Arenado of the Cardinals and Blue Jays pitcher Kevin Gausman were the players of the week. Arenado actually won the first player of the week this year in April. Now is his second. So last week, St. Louis was 6-0 and obviously swept the Yankees. Arenado hit .476, 10 for 21, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, and a 1.56 OPS. And then he capped it with 4 RBIs on Sunday to kind of punctuate that sweep over the Yankees at Busch Stadium. And then Gausman, this is his first ever Player of the Week award. He pitched twice last week, scoreless in both outings. Included in that were 8 innings of 1-hit ball with 10 Ks against the Rays on Tuesday. For the week, Gausman struck out 15 batters, gave up 7 hits and 1 walk over 14 innings, and was pretty damn near untouchable last week.
Dang. Crazy. So then, I mean, Nolan Arenado, and it seems like it's either, if it's not him, it's Paul Goldschmidt for players of the week. It's just,
honestly, those two guys have just taken turns carrying that team all season.
I just can't. It's unreal. It's just like, oh, which Cardinal won it this week? Huh.
It's unreal. I mean, Arenado's won 2 already. I mean, and he's probably deserved 5 of them because he's had some other epic weeks.
Goldschmidt's won 2 or 3, right? He's been on a few.
I think he's got 2. I mean, literally, these guys just take turns. For a month, it's Goldschmidt. For a month, it's Arenado. For a month, it's Goldschmidt. Mm-hmm. For a month, it's Arenado.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Man. All right, we'll move on to rounding third question of the week, which was what was the most impactful trade? We kind of already know. Surprising trade that didn't happen.
So many.
So here we go. Henry said Padres for Soto for 3 years, while they sit there and attempt to sign Soto. And then he expected Contreras and Happ from the Cubs to be traded, and they held on to him. I'm with him there. I don't understand that.
No, but Contreras shocks me. I mean, he had the emotional farewell. He was done. The Cubs told him he was done, and then they didn't move him. How many teams needed the catcher? Like, I feel like that was an obvious position to make a trade. I don't know how he didn't move.
Yeah, out of all the teams, all the playoff teams, there's tons that need a catcher.
Right. The Mets were in on a catcher. The Astros were in on a catcher. There are rumors that you had, that the Dodgers were kicking the tires on a catcher. You had the Padres kicking the tires on a catcher. I mean, I think everybody's looking for depth at the catcher position. How Contreras didn't move is beyond me.
Yeah. Doug said Padres to lock up Soto long term, and then expected Boston to make a move for a decent starter. I mean, let's be honest here. How did the Red Sox? They made trades. Okay, you got Tommy Pham and Eric Hosmer.
Junk.
How the heck did you not address the bullpen or pitching in general? Like, to me, I don't understand that. Like, if you're gonna sell. If you're gonna like try to improve your team a little bit, like, why aren't you addressing the glaring need?
Yeah, the Red Sox did this like weird middle of the road, like we're gonna make some trades, but we're not gonna make some trades. We're gonna improve the team, but not improve the team. Like, how is JD Martinez still a member of the Red Sox? Like, what is he doing to help that team when you've got glaring bullpen holes? You got a lot of health issues in the starting rotation. You know, Evaldi's still not quite right. Sales not back. I mean, you look at the starters they ran out there against the Royals over the weekend. That tells you everything you need to know about this team. Between the starting pitching and the bullpen, they ran out a bunch of AAA guys because it's all they got.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's frustrating, but it's like the Sox aren't making the playoffs. I mean, they're not.
No.
So, for you to go address the bullpen, if it's going to cost you more than what you're willing to give up, because let's say you like some of the guys in your system, some of the single or double A guys that they're asking for, and they won't take JD. I mean, I get like I was hoping that they would kind of make a move like that too, but it's like, I also think it's important not to overextend yourself in a situation like that. Like, to go do it for the sake of doing it because it's going to make your fan base happy, I think is kind of silly. I have no idea if they were even trying. Like, if they weren't trying, then shame on them. Like, I have a feeling that they did make some moves. They made the Haas move. They made the Tommy Pham move. So they were conversing with teams. Like, they were having conversations.
Yeah.
So I find it hard to believe that they were not asking about a solid starter, a Luis Castillo or, some bullpen help. But if it's like, if the price is too high, yeah, if we're 2 games or 1 game out of the division, then let's pay a little bit too much. But right now, like, we like the guys that we have in the system. Like, why give that up?
And and especially like you hit on it, the price that it was taking to acquire these guys. Hader got four prospects, or 2 and 2 major league ready guys. Castillo took 4 prospects. I mean, you're right. I think the price was too high for pitching at the deadline. The price was high for everybody. It seemed like. I mean, prospects were flying all over the place. Cincinnati Reds in 5 years are going to be unreal if all those kids come up together. Like, the Reds might have won the deadline, no joke. And like 4 or 5 years, these kids all come up together, like
loaded. But what I don't get is like, so maybe the asking price is too high to improve the team. Great. Then sell off the players you aren't keeping. If you're not keeping JD, get rid of him. I don't care if you get a player to be named later. Like, get something for him because this team's not going anywhere. Get something for next year. Xander Bogaerts, if you're not committed to re-signing him, let him go. You're not going anywhere this year. Him being on the roster makes no freaking difference down the stretch. Let him go. Get some trade capital back, whether it's some draft, whether it's some minor leaguers, whether it's some fringe major leaguers. Like, get something and then retool in the offseason. But like, they weren't buyers, they weren't sellers. Like, what the hell were they? They made some Tommy Pham, Eric Hosmer fell into their lap. I mean, that wasn't like a trade they tried to make, that fell in their lap.
Right.
Pham, okay.
I don't know.
But
I mean, they made a move. I mean, it's hard to say, like, we want them to make moves and they make a move and then we're like, well, they didn't mean to make the move. I mean, they made the move.
They needed a first baseman, badly too.
Yeah,
right.
But
I think the Xander thing, like,
you filled a minor. You filled a minor hole, but didn't deal with the fact you've got 2 guys on that team who aren't going to be here next year.
But we don't know. But the fact that they went and told Xander ahead of time, like a week before the trade deadline, they told him you're staying. We're not getting rid of you. I think goes to show that they want to keep Xander. I think they want to work something out to keep Xander. Now, if they don't keep Xander, I know the place. This city's going to go crazy. What's up?
I'm agreeing with you because, like, if they don't keep Xander, especially with the price that people were moving at the deadline, if the Red Sox don't move Xander, they could have gotten 4 prospects at least for Xander at the deadline. And if they get nothing, then the fans are going to be upset.
I think the fans, yes, but I think if I think Xander has proved that he wants to be here. He's said it 100 times, like he loves Boston. He wants to play for the Red Sox. It's the only organization he's ever played for, this, that, and the other. If it doesn't work out,
Derek Jeter is his role model. He loves that Jeter was loyal to one team. That's the reason he wears number 2. And I think he wants to stay.
I agree. And I think the Red Sox going out early and telling him, we're not moving you, I think is their way of making a good faith to him. Like, hey, we're going to try to work this thing out. We're going to try. Stick with us. We're going to try. The JD Martinez thing, I go back and forth on. It's like, I don't know. I love JD. I think in recent memory, JD is as good of a free agent signing that any team can say they've made in the last handful of years. I mean, what he brought to this city for as long as he's been here, phenomenal. And I wonder if JD went in the back and said, please, like, I don't want to be traded. Like, I wonder, and I have no idea backing this up. I'm just playing devil's advocate. But I wonder if JD went out and was just like, you know what? I prefer not to get traded in the middle of the season. Like, my family, this, that, or the other. Like, just let me play this season out. We'll get into the offseason. You know, we'll figure out what we're going to do in the offseason, where he's going to go, yada, yada. And if he did that, I think the Red Sox in the position that they're in, they owe it to him. They owe it to him. For a guy that's going to be gone at the end of the year, he's not bringing you a haul of prospects. He's not. You're not getting Josh Hader return for a JD Martinez at the deadline. You're getting some mid-level prospects that might reach it to AA or AAA, maybe. Likely prospects that you're going to move in another move. Like, you're not getting a bunch back for JD. And it would almost be a slap in the face if JD asked you not to trade him where you are now. Like, you're not going anywhere. Like, I wonder if it's almost a nod to him, be like, all right, you want to stay here, you stay here. You know, we'll bid you farewell in the offseason. I have no idea if that played out. I'm just saying, like, it's just typical Boston media, though, too, to have this reaction right away to be like, oh, the front office sucks. They don't know what they're doing. It's like, well, if that gets around, like if JD's a well-liked guy around the league, there's no way there's no way he doesn't have friends in every other locker room. If it gets around that they treat players like garbage, good luck signing free agents.
Right.
Like, there's a long game to be played here too. Like, if you're Heim and you're Alex Cora and you're like, if JD can go out to other guys in the market and be like, hey, that's a great place to play, man. The GM's a good dude. He takes care of you. Like, to me, like, that's worth more than 2 mid-level prospects you're going to get on April 3rd or August 3rd.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just throwing that situation out there because who knows? I mean, those guys talk.
No, and you're right. I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, that definitely could have happened. I was just going back to my point. I think if the Red Sox don't sign Xander in the offseason, then I think that's when people will be calling for Bloom's head on a spike because of the price that everybody was getting at the deadline for their 100%. Stars. I mean, I think that's what I'm worried about. But the way, after going back and like knowing Xander wants to stay, I think I feel a little bit better about that. I just hope that Devers does the same thing next year. But
no, and I feel the same way. Like, I like Chaim Bloom. I like what he's done here. I question why he didn't go, why he didn't make some of these moves, why he didn't look at moving on from JD, why he didn't look at moving on from Xander, if they're not really committed to keeping him. Because if the Red Sox put a value on Xander, he doesn't agree with, they're not gonna fill that void. Like, they're not going to close that gap, and he's going to leave. If he leaves for nothing, somebody should go kick Chaim Bloom upside his head for letting that happen, because that would be an absolute tragedy to have Xander walk away for nothing. We know JD's walking away for nothing, and that's okay. Love JD. I don't get romantic about the players. They're here, they play, they leave. It happens, but maybe they're letting JD play it out. Maybe he even intends on retiring after this year. Who the hell knows? Because physically, he looks like he's 50 out there. And his batting average is absolutely cratered in the last few weeks, and he looks done. And maybe he is. Maybe he's going to retire, and he wants to retire a Red Sox, and that's cool. But if Chaim Bloom doesn't make these moves and get something for these guys, and they all just walk away, then somebody's got to question whether or not they made a good baseball decision, or if they just gave these guys a swan song because they were a bunch of good dudes. Because I love Sean's point about these guys being good guys around the league, but I don't give a crap about how Chaim Bloom is viewed around the league. Guys are going to come here if the contract makes sense, and if this team is good. If the team sucks, like look at the Eric Hosmer situation. I don't want to go to Washington because they suck. They're going to pay me my money, and I'm going to get my at bats. I'm going to be a rock star on that team, but they suck. I don't want to go there. If this team's going to stink and get nothing for these guys that have value, somebody's got to question what Bloom is up to. I'm relying on the fact that Bloom's got a plan here, but if it doesn't unfold like it should, somebody's got to go and figure out what the hell's going on in that front office.
Yeah.
I think Chaim Bloom has made. I mean, Chaim Bloom is known as the guy that loves to get prospects in return, right? I mean, he's the guy that builds up organizations. He did it in, everywhere he's been up until this point. He's a prospector. Don't you think that if Chaim Bloom and Scott Boras and Xander Bogaerts, don't you think that if there was some good faith negotiation so far that, hey, we're going to try and work this out, he wouldn't rush to trade Xander Bogaerts for the plethora of prospects that he was going to get in return? Like, don't you think, like, for a guy that he's not Dave Dombrowski, he's not going to deplete a farm system. He loves to build up his farm system.
He won't do it.
So don't you think that if they were so far apart and he knows that they're going to walk in the I mean, there has to be some kind of or confidence on Chaim Bloom's part that, like, hey, we got a real chance at signing this guy in the offseason. We got a real chance.
Or there's a wink, nudge already. Right. Like,
right.
Maybe. There very well may be. But I find it so hard to believe that they're so far on opposite ends of the spectrum that a guy who loves to build up a farm system wouldn't rush for the opportunity to dangle Xander out there. I mean, it's not like he told him on August 2nd, we're not trading you. That was like a week before. He's like, you're not going anywhere. Right. Don't worry about it. Like, so I don't know. I'm with you. It's an absolute disaster if they let him walk and we get nothing for him. But that said a lot to me that they were so confident ahead of time saying, we're not even dangling you.
Yeah.
That says a lot to me that they've got to be closer than they want.
Yeah. And then
and I absolutely hope that's the case. I'd love to see Xander stick around. I mean, I love Xander, but at $35 million a year, I don't like Xander that much.
So a name we haven't mentioned yet, but somebody did say, so Jim said Soto, obviously biggest impact. Surprised, he said you can pick between JD Martinez and Nathan Eovaldi. So I don't know if you guys saw, but when Cora took him out of the Houston game, it was like a long goodbye. Like, Cora pulled him in close, whispered a whole bunch of stuff in his ear. Like, I think even Alex Cora thought he was done, because it almost to me looked like, thanks for everything you've done for us. Like, you've been a stud for, like, it was a longer than normal conversation, and it was a pull off the mound, and everyone thought like Eovaldi was gone. That's a pretty big shocker for me too.
Another guy who's a free agent at the end of the season. I mean, this team is going to turn over in a big way in the offseason. JD's contract falls, Xander likely opts out, Eovaldi's gone. You're down to the last couple years of Sale before you can unload that albatross of a contract.
Brazier, please say Brazier.
Which almost makes you. I mean, it almost leads again into, like, why are we going to rush out on August 2nd and make moves just for the sake of making moves? Now, I'm like, the Xander one, I'm totally all for. Like, if you don't bring Xander back, like, it's an absolute disaster to get him, to lose him for nothing. But like JD Martinez, or like, what's Eovaldi going to get you for what he's been this year? He hasn't been healthy. When he has been healthy, he's been fine. Or like, whatever.
He just came back too, right?
JD's not bringing you much in return. So it's almost like we're just going to make moves for the sake of making moves. Like, we know we're going to have a big turnover. We know it's going to be a big offseason in the sense of new faces, new names, new guys. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm happy with what they did. It's just like, it didn't bother me, I think, as much as it bothered other people, just because I'm not a big make a move for the sake of making a move. Like, you weren't going to get any better.
No, I get that.
And that's to talk at this at the other side of my mouth for a second. Xander's a rental, JD's a rental, Eovaldi's a rental. I'm sure the market for those guys wasn't great. I mean, granted, anything's better than the nothing you might get when they leave, because I don't see them re-signing JD or Eovaldi, and who knows where Xander lands. So like it would have been nice to get something and then bring up some minor leaguers and see what the hell you've actually got in the minor league system.
Sure.
But at the same time, these guys are going to go. It really doesn't matter. And maybe the prospects you're going to back were garbage and weren't worth making the move, and you're better off letting these guys just play out their contracts and move on. But I would love to know, and of course you never will. I'd love to know what offers might have actually been on the table for any of these guys.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
Chaim Bloom made a comment of, we set the bar high. Like we weren't going to just let guys go for nothing, and they let Vasquez go, although they didn't want to, according to Bloom, because the offering that they got were 2 top 30 prospects. So they said, look, if you're going to give us 2 top 30 prospects for a potential free agent that we don't know if we can keep, yeah, I'll take that. But did he really get significantly lesser offers for Evaldi and JD and Xander? Like, I'd be curious. We'll never know, but I'd love to know, what he actually got, because maybe he didn't get crap for offers, and I'm mad at him for no reason because there was no market for these guys. Who knows?
Yeah, it's fair. It's a fair point. A couple other names that I was surprised didn't move. Carlos Rodon and Jock Peterson from the Giants.
Yeah.
Thought the Giants were going to sell. They didn't.
I mean, the Giants are out. I mean, they're out, and that team, Rodon would have brought you back some capital because he's actually had a really good season, which I didn't buy into, but Sean did. For the record, Sean was all about Rodon. I thought he was going to flop out there, and he's been damn good.
Wolfpack products, NC State, baby.
He's been a little streaky, but he's been good.
Yeah. And then Pablo Lopez's name was thrown out there. He didn't end up moving. The Marlins kept him.
If the Marlins traded any of those guys, I would have flown to Miami myself to scream at that front office. You got those guys together for a couple more years. Let that play out.
Yeah, I agree.
So much talent down there.
Another catching prospect or talent, Sean Murphy from the A's, and the A's are in the basement. So thought he was going to get moved, and he didn't either. But
yeah, and the guy can hit. I mean, that guy, one of the few truly offensive catchers.
Yep.
He's my fantasy catcher. Not that my fantasy team's any good, but the guy can rake. The guy can absolutely hit.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were just talking about catching prospects, and it's just insane.
You mentioned the other day in our text exchange, talking about cranking out offensive catchers, which, the Royals have done. Melendez had friggin' 6 RBIs the other day, had a hell of a series for himself.
3 home runs against the Sox. I mean,
the offensive catcher is the entire idea of an offensive catcher is ironic in its own sense, but there's a handful of guys that can hit out of that position, and boy, are they valuable, because most of those guys cannot hit.
Yeah, Maldonado's the extreme case of not being able to hit, but like
he's so good behind the plate, but he just offensively he's not, just has nothing.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, heading home. We got a couple of loose ends to tie up here. The Nationals are sitting at 36 games won. Do they break 40 on the year? They got 2 months to get 4 wins. Do they do it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they'll do it.
Do they hit 45 wins? Do they get 9 wins?
Boy, that roster is so sad. I mean, it's just so sad. I don't know, that's probably a 50-win team if I had to guess.
So over under 50. Well, 49 and a half.
Yeah, I'm taking the under. I think 50 is their absolute ceiling. That team is garbage. That roster is trash.
Yeah.
And there's no, I mean, they got a massive haul of prospects, and maybe they'll be good in 5 years, but the future is pretty bleak for that organization.
So it's been like 3 weeks since I've mentioned their record, right? They were 30 and 58, what I have left on my phone, and they're 36 and something right now. So they've
36 and 74.
Yeah. So they're 6 and that's too much math. 6 and 18 in the last 24.
And have you checked the standings today?
No. Oh, but Cincinnati Reds are
Cincinnati's in third place in the NL Central.
Yeah, let's go.
They're in third place at 44 and 63.
Yeah, they're going to make the wild card. Watch.
And can I just ask, who decided to send the Cubs and the Reds to the Field of Dreams? Because that's the field of nightmares if you're going to go watch those two teams play.
They did that. They made that last year, I think.
So bad.
But I mean the Reds are the oldest franchise around. The Cubs are one of the most historic franchises. Like,
I know, but you picked two teams that were like absolutely in the toilet.
Yeah.
with no hope of being good.
Did you see the jerseys? They did reveal the jerseys. Have you seen them
Yeah,
yet?
actually, they weren't bad. They weren't bad.
The Cubs hat is fire. I want
Yeah,
one.
the Cubs hat is cool.
I
Yeah.
want the Cubs hat.
I didn't hate the jerseys. The hat. I thought the hats were the best part of the uniform, but jerseys weren't bad. And the Field of
The
Dreams thing
jerseys
is
are
cool
a
for me.
flashback too. Like they're
Yeah,
a flashback of like back at that time period. So I mean,
So Washington, just to tie it on for the rest of the year, Washington has today. So they got playing the Cubs, right? So they got the Cubs, the Padres, the Cubs, the Padres, Seattle, Cincinnati, Oakland, Mets, St. Louis, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Miami, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Mets. There is no way they're making 50 wins. There is no shot.
if
They
don't
might
do it
go.
in the first,
Yeah,
if
they
don't
might
do it
go
in the
over
first 4
September.
series, then, right.
Yeah, they
I
could go
mean-
over September with that schedule.
Fellas,
The Cubs they can steal some from the Reds.
they only have 3. They have okay. So they have 6 against Seattle.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm 6 against Seattle. 6 against the Cubs. 6 against the Cubs. I'm sorry. I meant
They'll
Cubs.
go 4 out of 6. 4 wins there.
They have 6 against the Cubs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 against the Padres, probably 0-7.
Maybe 1.
2 against Seattle, that's a sweep.
Yeah.
3 against, and it's in Seattle. 3 against Cincinnati, 3 against Oakland. And then they have the Mets, St. Louis, Philadelphia, 9 games, 10 games on the road.
Yeah, they'll go 1-9 if
This-
they're lucky.
This team might not get 42 wins. I don't see 8.
I
I
mean-
don't see 8 wins left on the schedule for them.
I mean, they literally could have 0 wins in the month of September with that schedule in front of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, September.
Yikes.
Oakland, Mets, St. Louis, Philly, Baltimore, Miami, Atlanta, Philadelphia. They might go 0 for September.
That's amazing.
Wow.
I mean, they're bound to win a few of those just like accidentally, but still, I mean, that's embarrassing. That
It's
They
I
literally-
don't
they-
know.
50.
I don't know.
I mean, I think 50 is their absolute ceiling, but you might be right. 42 to 45 might be realistic.
Jesus.
That's amazing.
pretty insane.
'Cause, I mean, there's nobody left on that roster. 0. There's 0 like legitimate players on that roster.
1916 worst record ever, 36-117. So if the
Who's that?
Nationals lose out, they'll get it. Philadelphia Athletics in 1916.
Yeah, they got 36 wins already. So if they win one more game all season, they won't be the worst. But damn, they might be close.
Second
But they
place
might
is
have
the
the most-
Boston
they-
Braves at 38-115, and then the Mets in 62 were 40-120.
Jesus, yeah, they're going to be like a top 5 worst team of all time.
Jesus.
I mean, that roster is just wiped. I mean, they got back. I mean, Mackenzie Gore is a good get for them. That's a talented guy. But most everybody else they got in that package is
CJ
3 years
Abrams
away.
isn't bad. CJ Abrams is major league ready. He'll be
Yeah.
all right in a couple of years. CJ
Yeah,
Abrams is
you're 2 to 3 years out from getting any real harvest off that group, other than
for
Gore.
sure.
But the problem is, like, are you going to ruin a guy like Mackenzie Gore by putting him on that team that's so bad that he, no matter how good he is, he can't win? Like, I feel like sometimes, being the top guy on a bad team is not a good place to be.
Yeah, definitely.
But man, oh man.
Also, I forgot to mention this one. The Padres trade Brandon Drury from the Reds going over. The
Yeah.
guy hit a grand slam in his first at bat in
Yeah.
the Padres uniform. It was like that was nuts too. But
Yeah, that was a big one.
yeah, I mean, Padres got some sticks. It'll be interesting. I think it's shaping up to be. I mean, haven't had much movement in the standings other than my Cincinnati Reds moving up, but I think the playoff teams are pretty much set right now. I don't see much movement. I mean, do you see anybody kind of falling out of a wild card and someone sneaking in at this point? I mean, I don't think I really do.
No, I mean,
Probably
unless
not.
a team. I mean, right now Milwaukee's sitting outside of the wild card. I mean, but I don't see them overtaking Atlanta. I think the only spots you have still up for grabs, realistically, are the last spot in the AL. You've got Seattle clinging to it with Cleveland a couple games back,
Mhm.
and then you've
Baltimore,
got
too.
you got Philadelphia clinging to the last wild card spot with Milwaukee kind of on their tail. I think otherwise, for the most part, your playoffs are largely decided at this point.
I cannot wait until I go to Cleveland and watch that Mariners Guardians series. Like,
It's gonna be a
I'm
good one.
so pumped for that.
I mean, the Cleveland's 2 games out of the wild card and 1 game out of the division. They've had a good little run here. They've played pretty well of late, and they've put themselves right back in it. And the White Sox are 1 game behind them. So there's one of those teams from the AL Central is going to obviously, is going to win the division. One team is going to be like on the edge of the wild card. I'll be interested to see if one of them can overtake.
So it's a race for the division, not necessarily a race for the wild card, right? Like,
Right.
You're not even
I
trying
think-
for the wild card, because if you don't get first place in the division, you're not making the playoffs.
I mean, you are, because Cleveland's 1 game out of the division, but they're 2 games out of the wild card. I mean, if Minnesota goes on the run or Cleveland goes on the run, there's a potential that an AL Central team could make a run to the wild card. But I still feel like you're going to have Toronto and Tampa grab those wild card spots.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a race for the division. But the AL Central could potentially pop 2 teams in there if
there's 3
the Blue Jays
there's
and the
3
Rays fall
wild card
off.
spots. There's 3 wild card spots now.
I'm sorry. I'm not including Seattle, who's got a comfortable.
Right. So
Seattle's sitting ahead of Tampa Bay right now.
Yeah, I don't think anybody
Are they?
overtakes Seattle.
No, Tampa Bay's sitting ahead of Seattle. Tampa Bay's got a 537 winning percentage. Seattle's at 536.
Oh, you're right. 536. That's right. They're 1 game. It's 1 game difference. So yeah. So Seattle will be the last spot right now.
So I'm with Nick on the AL Central. I think one team gets in and it's who wins the division, because I don't think Toronto or Tampa are being caught in that sense. And I think Seattle, with the upgrades that they made, Luis Castillo coming over, like, I think Seattle is comfortable. I'd be comfortable if I was Seattle. You're playing good baseball. I'm not worried about Baltimore getting rid of the guys that they got rid of. Cleveland a little bit, but like maybe. But they still have. Let me look at who Cleveland has left.
Yeah, what scares me with Cleveland is that they actually have a winning record against teams above 500. Toronto doesn't have that. Tampa Bay doesn't have that. Seattle doesn't have that. Cleveland plays good teams well. I don't know why.
They have the pitching to do it.
Well, they do, and that's the thing. Like, what scares me with Cleveland is that they've been very streaky. They've got really good pitching. I picked Bieber for the Cy Young, and he's been really all over the place this season. But if that team can get some sustained pitching for 3 or 4 weeks, they might surprise us and take that division over. And in Minnesota versus Seattle, I probably flip a coin on that.
I think the best thing the Guardians could have done too is they DFA'd Fremel Reyes, who was a 500 strike. He was a Joey Gallo right now.
Yeah, so I think in the American League, you've got kind of Tampa, Seattle, Cleveland, Minnesota fighting for the last 2 spots. Other than that, I think you're good. The Yankees are in. I think Houston's in. Toronto's in.
Houston, definitely, yeah.
And then you've got Tampa, Cleveland, Seattle, Minnesota kind of brawling over those last 2 spots.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the NL is pretty much set, other than the NL East, right? I mean, the Phillies could overtake the Braves possibly.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know if the Phillies have it in them. I actually look at the Phillies as the most gettable team there.
Yeah,
I actually see Milwaukee potentially being able to sneak in and grab that wild card spot from them. I think San Diego's good, LA's good, St. Louis is good, the Mets are good. Atlanta's probably good. It's really going to be like Philadelphia and Milwaukee for that last spot.
Yeah, and I think the Phillies, it's tough too. Like the Phillies really don't have much room for error, right?
They don't.
I mean, they're with Milwaukee being right on their heels, and it's a team that we saw, like, they're playing better baseball, but like that's a team that plays abysmal defense. Like, they don't play good
they're
defense.
so bad.
And like
so bad.
When you don't have room for error, it's hard. It's every ground ball is that much more important. Like you can't be giving team 4 to 5 outs.
No. I actually picked them to miss the playoffs because of their defense. I thought that defense would eventually kill them. But when is Harper due back? He's due back here soon, right?
No, sure.
He's hoping to come back this year. I don't know if there's a timetable.
I thought he was due back at the end of August. Okay.
I don't know if there's a timetable for him yet, because I think he had to get like full-on surgery.
Yeah, so I mean, Philadelphia is clinging to that last spot by the slimmest of margins. But I don't know. I feel like Milwaukee could easily overtake them. It's only a game and a half.
I do too.
The
I-
So
Brewers,
I feel like Mets, Atlanta, St. Louis, LA, San Diego are good. It's going to be a battle between Milwaukee and Philadelphia to see who grabs that last spot, in my mind, in the National League.
and the Brewers after August 18th have the Cubs. They have a 3-game set with the Dodgers. Cubs again. Pirates for 6. That's a home and home.
Oh, Jesus.
Then the Reds.
Yeah, they could be up 5 games coming out of that out of that stretch.
Yeah, and the Phillies, and I just looked at the Phillies. The Phillies have quite a few division games. I mean, they
Then
got
the
the
Diamondbacks
Marlins, they
and
got the
Rockies.
Mets. Yeah. So I
I don't know.
I think-
I like the Brewers still.
I do too. I do too.
I think they'll be all right.
I feel like the Brewers are going to have the easier path ahead, and the Phillies are very kind of inconsistent and streaky. I mean, the numbers for Schwarber are nuts. And I saw a stat like since 2019 or 2020, he's got either the first or second most home runs by a left-handed batter.
Yeah.
Like, I was shocked at that stat.
Number one for left-handed.
I saw that. I'm like, are you like,
Mhm.
wow, Schwarber's the top left-handed power hitter in the league. Never
Yeah,
saw that
it's
coming.
crazy.
Yeah. Let's just use them for a couple months and then let them go. Anyways, well,
Boy, he'd look
So-
really good over anybody else in that Red Sox lineup right now.
oh my God, I'd take his defense at first base too.
I mean, he'd have as
Even
many
though
home
that
runs
was-
as friggin',
rest
Xander,
of the
JD,
team.
and everybody else has played the outfield combined.
Yeah, that's crazy. Anything
Typical
else
Boston-
tonight, fellas?
Typical Boston media. When they made the move for Schwarber, everyone's shitting all over it. Oh, Schwarber, where are you going to play him? He's not a good outfielder. Where are you going to play him? He's got no spot. He's a guy that strikes out a lot. He doesn't get on base. And now that he's gone, everyone's talking about how much we miss Schwarber, how great he was, and how he was the next Ted Williams. Typical Boston media. It's absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, like, a baseball fan saw Schwarber as an upgrade when he came on, but most people were like, "Who the hell is this guy?"
Yeah,
I mean,
no one knew.
Is
who he was.
Schwarber? I mean, did anybody expect Schwarber to have the season he's had? No, but he's been consistently good for the last whole bunch of years.
Even when he was on the Cubs and he was putting them off those huge jumbotrons in right field,
When he came up with the Cubs, he was the guy. He was the next guy.
Yeah.
And then he had those couple years where he just kind of like lost his way, and then he kind of found it again.
But yeah,
I don't know. It doesn't matter. The Red Sox are a hot mess. Schwarber alone isn't going to fix that
no.
For sure.
unless he pitches.
So I'll continue to watch the Red Sox and complain about them on Facebook, and then if I get a glimmer of hope, I'll post it in boldface print too.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
Tommy
I mean-
Pham's home run the other day.
And realistically, Nick, a real fan wouldn't have to make those comments about the Red Sox, but we understand who you are.
Well, thanks, Harrison. I appreciate it. But you know what? Like every home run they hit now, I'll just post the video on Facebook and be like, "Good for them," with like clapping emoji.
Yeah, you should praise the team every loss they have. Praise that bullpen when they blow another lead.
I just can't. I mean, what is that up? I mean, that's like what 14 walk-offs we were talking about earlier.
It
They're
doesn't.
giving up.
Something like that.
It's stupid. It's stupid.
crazy.
They've blown like 39 saves. I don't even know.
Ugh. Anyways, all right. Well, so we're gonna end on the good note, and yeah, that's that. So we'll see you next Monday at 8. Just like, subscribe, share our podcast, interact with us all you want, all you can. Message us, comment, whatever you want to do, and we'll see you next Monday at 8.
See ya.